The lecture hall of the Galactic Institute buzzed with the soft chittering and warbling of 24 species, each seated in their precisely calibrated gravity pods. Professor Zelthar, a distinguished Vexenari scholar whose crystalline exoskeleton refracted the ambient light into dancing rainbows, stood at the podium manipulating a holographic display. And so we conclude. Zelthar's translator rendered his clicking speech into universal standard, that no carbon-based sentient species can possibly evolve in or survive prolonged exposure to gravitational forces exceeding 0.7 standard units. The physiological stress alone would. A hand rose from the back of the hall, a human hand. Zelthar's eye clusters swiveled. The human exchange students were always curious, sometimes annoyingly so, but this particular interruption felt different. The professor's sensors detected an unusual confidence radiating from the young female. Yes, student Zoe stood, her movements fluid despite the 0.6G environment of the station and accommodation for the more delicate species. Professor, with respect, Earth's gravity is approximately 1 standard G unit. How do you explain my existence? The lecture hall fell silent. Several students' translator implants glitched, uncertain they'd processed the statement correctly. Zelthar's crystals dimmed slightly, the Vexenari equivalent of a frown. I'm sorry, student Zoe, but that's simply impossible. Our measurements of your homeworld must be in error. The Galactic Survey clearly indicates. The Galactic Survey, interrupted Chris, the other human exchange student, standing beside his companion, never actually landed on Earth. They took readings from orbit and extrapolated. They got it wrong. A Quilnarian student, resembling an oversized moth, fluttered nervously in her low-gravity chamber. But 1 full G? That would crush our thoraxes. Our species requires 0.3 G maximum. Zoe smiled, that peculiar human expression that so many species found unsettling, a bearing of bone-white calcium deposits. That's because you evolved on a low-gravity world. We didn't. Professor Zelthar's exoskeleton flushed a deep amber irritation mixed with incredulity. Young female, I have studied xenobiology for 300 of your years. The structural requirements alone, the bone density, the muscular development, the cardiovascular pressure needed to pump fluids against such gravitational force would make complex cognition impossible. The energy expenditure would be enormous, Chris agreed, walking down the aisle toward the front, even in the reduced gravity. His movements had a weight to them, a controlled power that suddenly seemed ominous to the assembled students, which is why humans consume somewhere between 1,800 and 3,000 calories per day. More if we're physically active. A stunned silence blanketed the room. That's more than a Drexilian eats in a week, squeaked a small reptilian student. Zoe descended the steps to join Chris at the front. Professor, may I demonstrate something? Zelthar gestured with a crystalline limb, curiosity overriding protocol. Proceed. Zoe approached the gravity demonstration platform, a circular area, where the professor could adjust gravitational fields for experimental purposes. Set it to 1 G, please. That could injure you severely, Zelthar warned. It's what I grew up in. It's home. The professor's manipulators trembled as he adjusted the controls. The gravity field generator hummed, and the numerical display climbed 0.60.7, 0.8. Around the room, students in their protective pods watched in horror. Several had closed their primary sensory organs, unable to watch what they assumed would be a gruesome demonstration. 1.0 G. Zoe stood perfectly still, smiling. Then, casually, she dropped into a push-up position and began performing them. 1, 2, 5, 10. She transitioned into a handstand, balancing her entire body weight on her arms. Before flipping back to her feet, "We call this exercise," she said, barely breathing hard. "We do it for fun, to stay healthy." Chris stepped onto the platform beside her. "Want to see something really interesting?" He bent down, wrapped his arms around a 50-kilogram equipment case, sitting nearby, and lifted it to chest height, in 1 G. The case, designed to be transported by hover cart, groaned under its own weight. "Our species," Chris continued, setting the case down, "didn't just survive 1 G, we thrived in it. We evolved as persistence hunters. We would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until they collapsed from exhaustion. Our cardiovascular system is so efficient we can maintain aerobic activity for hours. Our skeletal structure is so dense that bones are one of the last things to decompose when we die. Zoe picked up where he left off. Our planet tried to kill us in every way imaginable. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, temperature extremes from 50 below zero to 50 above. And we didn't just survive, we conquered every ecosystem, deserts, tundras, rainforests, mountains. We even learned to survive in the oceans temporarily, and we've begun colonizing space. Professor Zelthar's crystals had gone completely dim, cycling through colors as his three-part brain struggled to recalculate everything he thought he knew. But the energy cost, the evolutionary pressure, it's so inefficient. Chris's smile widened. Professor, it made us the most durable sentient species in known space. You want to talk about inefficiency? Humans can survive injuries that would kill most species outright. We can lose a quarter of our blood and still function. We can operate on pure adrenaline when necessary, temporarily overriding pain and exhaustion. Our immune systems are so aggressive they sometimes attack our own bodies by mistake. We heal from broken bones, Zoe added. We can survive with significant portions of our internal organs removed. Some humans have lived after their primary circulatory pump stopped for several minutes. A Threxian student, its tentacles quivering, spoke through its translator. But why? What kind of death world produces creatures like you? Zoe and Chris exchanged glances. A beautiful one, Zoe said softly. Earth is paradise. Blue skies, vast oceans, diverse biomes. It's harsh, yes, but it's also wonderful. Professor Zelthar slowly lowered himself onto his resting platform, his certainty shattered. 3 centuries of research, of peer-reviewed publications, of accepted scientific consensus all called into question by 2 young humans standing casually in a gravitational field. That should have reduced them to paste. I believe, he said finally, his translator conveying a tone of deep respect. I need to revise my lecture notes extensively. Chris grinned. Professor, if you think 1G is impressive, wait until you hear about our special forces. They train in 5G environments on purpose. The lecture hall erupted in shocked vocalizations across 24 species, and in that moment, the Galactic Institute learned a fundamental truth that would reshape xenobiology. Never, ever underestimate what evolution produces when survival means fighting gravity itself every single day. Humanity didn't just survive 1G. They made it look easy.